like a Hellcat.
Before we get started, I have a favor. If you enjoy my content and want to see me continue to improve in both quality and size, please check out my Patreon linked in the description. Any amount helps and it is greatly appreciated. There are so many rewards for each level of donation, so go check it out. Now back to the video. With Blizzard's consideration about making main tanks play like off tanks, I made a video proposing a few rework ideas for the main tanks within the roster. So as a follow-up, I wanted to make a video where I looked at some of the DPS heroes that could potentially be reworked into tanks, either due to their bulky size or tanky playstyle. The ones I have in mind are Mei, obviously, as I've made apparent in previous videos, Bastion, sorta obvious, he can literally turn into a tank, though that might not be staying, Doomfist, Reaper, and Torbjorn. The first two I will do are Mei, who I am reworking based off the Blame the Controller concept, and Doomfist, who I have done in the past but have made a few minor changes to my own original concept. Mei already works like a tank should, shielding the team, high survivability, and crowd control / zoning. The only thing that doesn't currently work is her lower health and higher damage. Blame the Controller increased her health to 350, which is less than other tanks, even Zarya, but could work considering her smaller hitbox and still higher survivability. Maybe turning 50 or 100 of that health into armor could work to compensate. With her primary fire, the beam damage is reduced from 55 DPS to 50 DPS, and the secondary down from 75 to 65 damage. Next is Cryofreeze, which has an increased total healing from 150 to 200, while the duration is reduced from 4.25 seconds down to 3, and the cooldown is decreased from 12 seconds to 11 seconds. Now I do have an additional change to add on to that. Different from the Blame the Controller rework, I want the ice block to actually have a maximum health of 500. So enemies can deal enough damage to remove her from a fight and remove her temporary invisibility and stalling potential without making her too easily just to flick off the map just because you have enough damage. For Ice Wall, the individual pillar health is reduced to 250 from 400, the duration is down to 4 seconds from 5 seconds, and the cooldown is 10 seconds down from 13. Blame the Controller also added a passive called Chilled, which would make enemies deal 12% less damage for 4 seconds after being frozen. Blame has left the ultimate entirely unchanged, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. Overall, as I said, she is sort of a tank already, just in the damage category, and dealt a little bit too much damage and was slightly too weak on the tanking side. I do think this rework alleviates both of those issues, and I think that this rework could be quite seamlessly added into the game without causing too much disruption. Now for Doomfist, the main reason I want to make him a tank is because of how he as a character, not as a hero, carries himself. Doomfist is not known as a person to flank the backlines and attack from behind. He instead would be much more in the middle of the fight, standing his ground on the front line similar to how Reinhardt plays. My rework for this video isn't exactly like my original one either. I have added a few changes, shifting him from being a dive tank to being more of a bruiser. For his primary fire, I have increased its damage per pellet to 2 to 9, up from 1.8 to 6. I have also increased the rate of fire from 0.33 seconds to 0.32 seconds, and increased the reload speed from 0.5 seconds to 0.65 seconds. That shift is overall just designed to give him a little more damage, but make him not be able to be as consistent, though both changes are minor. For a secondary fire rocket punch, its impact damage has a doubled max damage at 200, but requires an additional 1.5 seconds for a total of 3 seconds to reach the damage threshold. All the rest of the stats will stay the same, except its cooldown, which is now 6 to make up for the higher damage potential. An additional change is adding a secondary function to Rocket Punch. It's called Straight Punch. Instead of holding the secondary fire trigger, the player can press, click, or tap the button, and it will deal 50 damage and cause 3 meters of knockback, but it does not include the stun. Using this function of the ability will lead to a 2-second cooldown instead of a 6-second cooldown. The reason for this is to grant Doomfist some frontline damage in a brawl that won't displace him or his target if it's not his goal at the time. Since this rework is aimed to make him a bruiser and not a dive tank, his abilities will have some fundamental changes. Seismic Slam will now not cause Doomfist to launch forward if he is standing on the ground. Instead, it will deal 75 damage in the damage cone that it is currently. This is now the base damage, but he is still able to increase it if he is airborne. in which case the ability will work as it currently does. Rising Uppercut will no longer cause Doomfist to launch into the air. Instead, the distance is slightly higher than jump height, but this will still increase damage of the previous ability. The damage of Uppercut is also increased to 75 to make up for the lost mobility. His ultimate would stay the same in this version, but the best defense passive will have some changes I gave him in the original rework video. He gains 45 player shields per enemy hit with his abilities, except Straight Punch, which provides none. These shields cap at 200 and begin to decay after 1 second at -3 shields per second. Allies within an 8 meter radius around Doomfist gain the same effects from best defense, but will only receive 15 shields per ability and cap at 75, with the same decay rate and delay. My hope is this rework will pull Doomfist out of the flanking playstyle and more of a brawly playstyle similar to Reinhardt, maybe even being able to combo well with him or Zarya. The next DPS is Reaper, so I had a few ideas with him. One to be a bruiser and the other a dive. However, I found an interesting middle ground. First, his health will be set to 400, like the new Doomfist, due to his smaller size, once again like the new Doomfist for a tank, and his passive will remain the same. His primary fire damage has a reduction of 1 to 5.5 damage, down from 2.1 to 7 damage per pellet, for max total of 120 damage, down from 150. The main reason for this is to reduce his damage, since he should be a tank and be alive a lot longer, considering the fact he will still have lifesteal. Reaper will gain a secondary fire called Necrotic Bomb. This is a grenade shot from his shotgun with the same arc and speed as body grenade that deals 20 damage in a 5 meter radius around its impact and applies a 30% damage increase for oncoming damage and a 30% decrease to healing for enemies and a 50% increase to any ally self-healing attacks like Reaper and Moira. These effects last 4 seconds and the ability will have a 9-second cooldown. This is aimed to grant him some team utility in the form of a damage boost, in addition to blocking his enemy's ability to heal and increasing his own. I also wanted him to have 2 max charges of this because of his 2 shotguns, but that would be a bit overkill. Next, Shadow Step and Wraith Form are being lumped together into Shadow Leap. With this, he leaps into the air with a plus 50% movement speed for up to 2 seconds. The in-air navigation works similar to Winston's leap in low gravity. He will carry the same invulnerability Wraith Form has, and the ability will have Wraith Form's 8-second cooldown. If leaping on a flat surface, for example, he should leave the invulnerability just before hitting the ground, allowing him to jump on top of the team if they are on level ground to him. But if he does jump to high ground and lands before the 2-second duration is up, it will work like Wraith Form currently does. To replace Shadow Step, I'm giving him Smoke Bomb. This will take care of the need for symmetry with a Necrotic Grenade and make the other shotgun fire this, using once again the same arc and speed as the prior. Upon impact, the bomb will create a 4 meter radius cloud that obscures enemy sight but highlights enemies within the smoke, while also reducing any enemy damage that passes through it or is fired in the cloud, granting allies affected by it a 30% damage resistance. This will last 4 seconds and have a 9-second cooldown. This ability will allow him to have influence on the other side of the spectrum of tank, that is, damage mitigation. Outside of that, his ultimate will remain the same. This version of Reaper would be the ultimate anti-tank tank, able to dive, brawl, and defend, playing similar to a mix of D.Va, Hog, Winston, and what Reaper currently is. Now we move on to Bastion, the only hero who is actually a tank. Since he is huge compared to lower health tanks, I'll give him a 450 point health pool, split between 200 health and 250 armor. For his recon mode primary fire, passive, and self-repair, I think that they should stay the same. I do want to switch his ultimate and sentry mode ability, very similar to the Blame the Controller concept. Configuration tank will now last 8 seconds, but only have 5 shots, so it works similar to Hanzo's Storm Arrow. You'll have a 12-second cooldown, and the shots will do 120 damage direct, and 25 to 100 damage in a 2.5 meter splash radius. In addition to this, I'm giving him another ability, Landmine. Bastion deploys a mine that travels to a targeted location within 35 meters at 15 meters per second and plants itself into the ground, taking 0.75 seconds, and will explode if an enemy walks into a 2.5 meter detonation radius, dealing 75 to 100 damage in a 4 meter blast radius. While priming and while it's planted, it can be destroyed and has 50 health. The ability has a 10-second cooldown, and if another is placed before the first detonates, it will immediately detonate, dealing 50 damage in a 2.5 meter radius. Now, as I said, Configuration Sentry is now his new ultimate with a few changes. His weapon no longer has an ammo cap. However, it does have a 0.75 second windup, where the rate of fire starts at 0.09 seconds and gradually increases to 0.03 seconds, where it is now. His ultimate brings back his old barrier shield, which has 500 health, and only has 1 life per use of the ultimate, not being able to recharge while down. The ultimate has a 12-second max duration, which is just about, wind up accounted for, the same amount of time it would take to go through a full clip if this rework kept the ammo. Because of his new high health pool, high damage of the turret, and the barrier, the ult charge requirement will now be 2,500. This version of Bastion may be a weaker tank, but should complement well in any defensive comp due to the new mine ability and his ultimate. Both can be used situationally on attack as well. He would definitely combo well with current main tanks, so maybe reworking all the main tanks to off tanks wouldn't be a good idea in this case. Lastly, my Torbjorn rework is sort of a joke. With his small size, he can never really be a tank, but whatever, let's go with it. First, his health is increased to 300, with 250 health and 50 armor. Both his primary and secondary fire will remain the same, but when he switches to his hammer, his secondary fire will now deploy armor packs that provides 25 armor. He charges up 1 pack every 15 seconds and is able to hold 4 at a time. They work functionally like they used to before they were removed, not being able to be stacked, but they can also be used to heal player armor, instead of adding extra armor. Overload holds the same effect, increasing his health to 500, his armor now being 250, but in addition to that, the armor packs now charge 3 times as fast, and any allies within a 7-meter radius of him, upon picking up these armor packs, will gain 100 health instead of the 75 health, and this remains until the ability ends after 5 seconds. The cooldown will remain the same. The next major change is to his turret. Once it reaches full health, it will now produce a 250 health barrier in front of it. This barrier will not regenerate, only having 1 use per placement of the turret, and after it is destroyed, the turret will upgrade to the old level 3 turret, and this will last for 6 seconds. Afterward, it will return to a level 2 turret without a barrier. He's able to throw an armor pack onto it and return the barrier health, but at the cost of 2 pack charges. His ultimate works exactly the same. Now, it would be cool if we could give Torb a mech to make his health increase make sense, but that would probably never happen. I can only imagine him driving around in a little forklift with arms. Again, this rework is kind of a joke and outlandish, but I thought making it was fun. Overall, what do you guys think about these reworks, and what do you guys think about the kind of parody rework of Torbjorn there at the end? Feel free to tell me your opinion in the comment section down below. I do honestly think some of these characters like May, Bastion, and Doomfist could potentially be reworked to tanks, same way I think characters like Soldier 76 and Sombra could be reworked to be supports. It just takes some time, but I want to get your opinion. Feel free to tell me in the comment section down below. As always, thank you all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And follow all of our socials to keep up to date with me off the channel. Go to Discord, join the conversation. I'm stuttering. Go to Discord, join the conversation. Go to Patreon if you feel like supporting me. This is Untitled Avenger. Have a nice day. Stay safe. Peace out.